Good evening, and welcome to Unexplained Reality, the podcast about the weird, strange, and unexplained but real. We are delighted to have you with us. Please grab your favorite beverage, sit back, and enjoy.
Good evening and welcome to Unexplained Reality. I'm one of your hosts, Brian Quinn, and with me is my son,
Harrison Quinn.
It's been a while. Hopefully everybody has been doing okay. Sorry, we've been busy doing with other stuff and just been doing our thing. So
Sure have.
we apologize for any of those that were just sitting there anticipating every day a new episode coming out, crying and just having to take anxiety medicine because it wasn't there again. Sure there's zero people out there that that would be the case for. But anyways, regardless, we're back whether you like it or not. Things have been good with us. Harrison's good. He finished up school year.
Yep. Got my driver's permit. Now or my learner's permit. Now I'm starting to drive. Practicing.
Yep. So things, life moves on. So, as usual, if you guys want to contact us, you can reach us at unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. You can reach us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Let's see. We have a Facebook page. We have a closed group, and then there's like a page. So yeah, if you look up Unexplained Reality, you'll find us, and you just send us a request, and we'll let you in on the secret page. All kinds of cool stuff you wouldn't believe happens there. Not really. It's pretty quiet, but we like to share stories, and with those that follow us on there. I have a couple stories. Harrison, you got anything you want to talk about before we roll into this?
Not really, no.
Okay. Everything's cool with you? Just chill as usual?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. A couple of stories I found on mysteriousuniverse.org. Great podcast, by the way, if you guys don't listen to it, which I'm sure you probably do. There's a story about extinct blonde bear spotted in Russian mountains is the title of this article. It's from July 29th. I'm just going to read just a little bit from it. There may be hope of finding a Tasmanian tiger yet, and perhaps even Bigfoot. A blonde bear species that was thought to be extinct for over 60 years has been photographed in the Altai Mountains of Russia. Not by extinct species hunters or Yeti trackers, but by a tourist group looking for rare birds of prey and Argali mountain sheep. The adult blonde bear with white claws that has only been seen by most people in drawings and old photographs seemed as surprised as the tourists. Is it too soon for an annual blonde bear festival? That's pretty cool. I mean, I didn't read the whole article. It's a pretty extensive article. Didn't provide a picture, so I guess the person didn't release it. But anytime they find an animal that has been thought to be extinct, I think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Although I will say I believe this is a woman's hair in this picture. I believe that's like from a L'Oreal commercial or something.
I don't know, man. That just looks like a zoom in of Donald Trump's comb over.
It could be.
I mean, that's just what it looks like.
It could be right after he got out of bed.
That's what my hair looks like after I get out of bed. Not blonde, but
could be. Anyways, another article here is talks about Bigfoot as an interdimensional interloper. Is the name of the that's something that there's a big, I guess, arguing point or point of contention in the Bigfoot community. I think is some people believe they're interdimensional and they can do crazy stuff, bend light and shapeshift. I think there's something odd about them, but I don't know if they're interdimensional. I wouldn't go that far, but I don't know. I don't know all there is to know, obviously, and probably nobody does. So they have another article from July 19th about a giant bird reported near Yellowstone. That's cool. I haven't read this one. Mysterious forest fires and the paranormal. That sounds like interesting art. Anyways, move along. Let's see. We just watched a video on, what's this website? Disclosed.tv about this strange creature that was caught by this like photojournalist or videographer in the Ukraine, specifically in Chernobyl. And this is from July 24th, 2018. But it's a crazy creature, isn't it? It looks kind of like the body of maybe a small moose.
Yeah.
But it has the head. It looks like a rabbit or something. Or
to
no
me,
head.
It looked like it didn't look like it didn't have a head. It looked really strange. It looked like a small moose's body, just with no head.
And he's just running through the forest, and he's
Past
been dodging
tracks.
trees for the past 30 years since the accident or something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing surprising there because the amount of radiation that was...
That's still being put out.
Yeah, it was still being put out. But and if you haven't checked out anything about Chernobyl and that whole accident, you should just go read some information about it. Look at pictures from that accident scene, like they took right afterwards. It's incredible. You see, steel rods that were slammed into solid steel, like 8 feet deep. It's just the amount of force that had to happen there for. Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, one particular story really neat. It's called the elephant's foot. That's a really neat,
About Chernobyl?
Yeah, there's one centrifuge, one huge massive cluster of radioactive material that's all clumped together, and it's still it's the most radioactive place on Earth right now, I think, and it's you can take tours inside of it, not public tours,
right?
But there's people who've done tours and they say you can only stay a minute. Even in full rad suits, you stay a minute and you got to get out.
Yeah, I mean, that whole area, when you go in, you've got to carry meters and stuff to register. Yeah, I don't know. Years ago, Destination Truth, Josh Gates' I guess it was his first show he did, they went to the Ukraine and they caught some wicked, thermal footage inside some of those buildings where he caught, apparitions or... Yeah. Thermal
it's crazy.
signatures.
The whole thing's a ghost town because people just evacuated. And
yeah.
People who didn't evacuate
just
died.
That's the creepy thing about it, too. If you go just look at, pictures of Chernobyl nowadays, and you see, a Ferris wheel, just sitting there, weeds and stuff growing up everywhere, streets.
There's a schoolhouse in Chernobyl, and it's got gas masks lined up along the wall for the kids.
Yeah.
If
there's, notebooks and pencils still on the table. They just,
it's
got out of Dodge.
Yeah.
Whole city streets and, high-rise buildings are just... it's creepy. There's no telling what's running around over there.
Yeah. There's people who hunt boar there, and that boar are huge.
Yeah, I guess so.
There's no...
Don't eat that meat.
Yeah, no, definitely not. There's no, they use it for trophies, but there's no question about it. There's people who have caught, giant wolves and boars who've hunted them and have trophies, giant boar heads.
It's crazy. And you got to think, that area already, even without the radiation, is a pretty rugged area. Russia, most of Russia is pretty rugged. And so the critters over there grow pretty big anyways.
Yeah.
Because they've got a lot of resources, what they need for growing and feeding. But that's kind of, we're not gonna go into a lot of news tonight. We're gonna probably change up the way we do the show. We can't guarantee it's going to come out on a certain day, a certain week. We're kind of play it by ear. So, but we are going to try not to make it, 3-4 months gap between shows, because I think the last show we did was March or February or something ridiculous. That was just total slackness on our part. But tonight we're going to talk about something that me and Harrison ran into, or not ran into, but we
went and explored.
Yeah, we saw this when we were, I think, 3 years ago, 2015, summer 2015, we went to Germany for 3 weeks. Me and Harrison and my wife and my parents and one of my brothers. And we toured around Germany and Austria. Anyways, we're going to jump into this and you'll see where it'll all come together. But tonight we're talking about, and it's very, very interesting life that he led, and just kind of what all entailed around his life. But it starts off in 1547 when the King of France, Henry II, received a gift on the night of his coronation. That gift was the gift of a wild man, and he was in an iron cage and was presented to him, to the King Henry II. In medieval mythology in Europe, there were countless stories of wild men. They were depicted as half man, half beast. Typical. We had them in the States too, these kind of stories, which a lot of the times in the States they reference what we know as Bigfoot or Sasquatch creatures. But anyways, in medieval Europe, they were typically described as very hairy. In most stories, they were portrayed in a very negative context. Usually the stories went that when night fell, you better have your children and your chickens secured because these creatures were going to come and go for them if they weren't locked up or in the house or whatever. So you can imagine anxiety when one of these wild men of legend arrived in King Henry's court. Not only would you have had fear in having such a dangerous beast in the midst of royalty and upper crust types of society, but you would have a level of excitement and curiosity also. This thing of legend, and here it is in the flesh and blood. Imagine if you're at a party and someone brings to you as a gift a Sasquatch in a cage and plops it down. There would be so much curiosity, but also, a high level of fear. Wondering if that cage is going to keep this thing secure because, let's be honest, if it doesn't and this thing escapes, it's looking for revenge. It's going to be pissed off. So anyways, they bring in this wild man in a cage into the court of King Henry II of France. The wild man is then moved to the dungeon where he can be secured and observed. Here's where doctors and scientists investigated that wild man and found that he was in fact not a wild man, he was a young boy. His entire body was covered in very thick but soft hair. The young boy told him that his name was Pedro Gonsalvus and that he was taken from his home in the Canary Islands where he was born in 1537 in the town of Tenerife. So, the doctors continued to monitor Pedro and, still weren't convinced that he wasn't just a wild man or, a little wild man, I guess a spawn of a wild man. But after monitoring him for more than 24 hours, they concluded that he pretty much was a typical 10-year-old boy. Well, with the exception of, his body being covered by hair. So during this time period, it was not understood that this boy had an affliction. Rather, it was accepted that he was some kind of human-animal hybrid, or the spawn of a wild man. However, years later, it would come to be documented by Ulysses Aldrovandi, an Italian naturalist, through his observation of a family in the Canary Islands that were afflicted by the condition that would become known as hypertrichosis. That family was none other than the family of our subject here, the family of Pedro Gonsalvus. So hypertrichosis is the Latin term, or is Latin for, I should say, too much hair. That's what it literally means. There are two types of hypertrichosis, or should I say classifications. There is congenital, which is present at birth and caused by genetic mutations. This type is very rare. The other type of classification is acquired hypertrichosis. This form appears after birth and can be the product of various exposures or catalysts. Some of these are, side effects of drugs, cancer, other disorders. Acquired hypertrichosis can typically be controlled via treatment, unlike the congenital version. And if you hear Queso is with us here in the room and he's tapping around. Don't know why, but when we start recording, he wants to roam. So anyways, Pedro Gonsalvus had congenital hypertrichosis. This condition is extremely rare. And in the past 400 years, they speculate there's only been around 50 documented cases of congenital hypertrichosis. It's interesting to note that hypertrichosis was also known as werewolf syndrome. But during the 16th century, things were, different, and obviously, and many of the oddities that we know about today were just beginning to be experienced. Conditions such as dwarfism and gigantism were not understood. So anybody with these sorts of conditions were viewed as curiosities and not really considered people for some reason. I guess it was just a lack of knowledge back then. And that being the case, for some twisted reason, the rich would acquire these oddities of nature as a status symbol that would reflect their wealth. So, if you wanted to show how wealthy you were, you'd buy you a dwarf, or buy you a hairy man, a wild man, or a gigantic man, whatever. So it seemed that the more curious the being, the more status you had within the wealthy circles, you went through, you circled around in. Therefore, Pedro's condition made him quite the prize when he was gifted to the king, obviously. After Pedro was given to the king, he was given a new name, a Latin name. That name was Petrus Gonsalvus. So it's pretty close to what it is. Yeah. It's not like, your name's Bob and they start calling you Jim. Yeah. It'd be hard to deal with. So, the king gave Pedro the new name Petrus Gonsalvus. And he also provided him with education that typically a nobleman would have. And it was kind of, he did this as kind of an experiment. To see, I guess, can he civilize the wild man? So in time, Petrus even came to hold a position at court under King Henry II. Well, in 1559, Henry II died following a jousting injury. Oh. And his widow, Catherine de Medici, whatever. Why can't I pronounce that woman's name? Say
Medici?
It. Medici, that's it. Okay. Right. Eventually became regent. And, if you don't know what a regent is, a regent governs a state when the monarch is a minor, or he's absent, or he's incapacitated. So, Catherine de Medici. You will, probably remember her from an episode that we did previously called The Little Red Man. She was not a nice person, to say the least. So just to kind of refresh your memory, if you don't remember from Little Red Man, from Wikipedia, she was born on the 13th of April, 1519, and she died on January 5th, 1589. She was the daughter of Lorenzo II Medici. How do you say that? Medici. Why do I have to? Okay, so she was the daughter of Lorenzo II de Medici and of Madeleine de la Tour de Auvergne. She was an Italian noblewoman who was Queen of France from 1547 until 1559 by marriage to King Henry II. As the mother of Kings Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III, she had extensive and, if at times varying, influence in the political life of France. From 1560 to 1563, she ruled France as a regent for her son Charles IX of King of France. In 1533, at the age 14, Catherine married Henry, second son of King Francis I and Queen Claude of France. Age 14. Wow. Some sickos back then. Throughout his reign, Henry excluded Catherine from participating in state affairs and instead showered favors on his chief mistress, Diane de Poitiers, who wielded much influence over him. Henry's death thrust Catherine into the political arena as mother of the frail 15-year-old King Francis II. Now, get this. The king could marry a 14-year-old girl. Mm-hmm. But the 15-year-old king can't rule himself.
No.
Makes no sense.
That's just how it works, man.
Not right. So when he died in 1560, she became regent on behalf of her 10-year-old son, King Charles IX, and was granted sweeping powers. So she was allowed to sweep, I guess, she could sweep. Here, we give you this broom. You get to sweep. Sweep the whole place up. Wanted to clean. We want it clean. No iRobot for you. No Roombas. You are the Roomba. Okay. After Charles died in 1574, Catherine played a key role in the reign of her third son, Henry III. He dispensed with her advice only in the last months of her life. I don't know what that meant. I don't even know what I read there. Catherine's okay, strike this one. Catherine's three sons reigned in an age of almost constant civil and religious war in France. The problems facing the monarchy were complex and daunting, but Catherine was able to keep the monarchy and the state institutions functioning even at a minimum level. At first, Catherine compromised and made concessions to the rebelling Protestants and Huguenots as they became known. She failed, however, to grasp the theological issues that drove their movement. Later, she resorted in frustration and anger to hardline policies against them. In return, she came out to be blamed for the excessive persecutions carried out under her son's rule, in particular for the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre of 1572, in which thousands of Huguenots were killed in Paris and throughout France. Some historians have excused Catherine from blame for the worst decisions of the crown, though evidence for her ruthlessness can be found in her letters. In practice, her authority was always limited by the effects of the civil wars. Her policies, therefore, may be seen as desperate measures to keep the Valais monarchy on the throne at all costs, and her patronage of the arts as an attempt to glorify a monarchy whose prestige was in steep decline. Without Catherine, it is unlikely that her sons would have remained in power. The years in which they reigned have been called the Age of Catherine de' Medici, according to Mark Strange, one of her biographers. Catherine was the most powerful woman of the 16th century in Europe. Anyways, back to Petrus. So, just give you a little background on butcher her name one last time. So, Catherine decided that Petrus should marry. She wanted to produce more wild men. She thought that'd be cool. Just have a bunch of little wild men running around. It is believed that Petrus was in his 20s by this time. So Catherine chose a wife for Petrus, a woman who also had the name Catherine, although we don't know her last name. She was Catherine no name.
Just Catherine.
Just Catherine. She didn't need a last name. As the story goes, this woman did not see her groom and wasn't aware in any way of her husband's identity or his condition until the actual ceremony. Man, what a shock that would be. That's like, okay, you're marrying a Sasquatch today. Good luck. We got you a toaster. So, because of the reputation of wild men, they were in actuality to be believed to be what we would call today werewolves. That's what they believed in that time period in Europe. So, in the 16th century, it was believed that these wild men would become aggressive towards evening. Just like the old werewolf stories. When the sun goes down, they get crazy. I'm sure the new wife would have been concerned about that situation after they were married, especially when she found out, she had no clue what she was marrying, and all of a sudden she's marrying a werewolf. Well, that's going to happen when the lights go out. So, about a year after Catherine and Petrus married, they welcomed their first child. A boy was born, and I'm sure, much to Catherine de' Medici's disappointment, this child had none of the hairy attributes of Petrus. Not long after, a second child was born, also without signs of hypertrichosis. This streak would end with child 3 and 4, who were both born with the condition. Catherine and Petrus would go on to have a total of 7 children. 4 of the 7 were born with hypertrichosis, as well as at least one of their grandchildren. So she got her little wild men.
So it is hereditary.
Yeah.
They breeded werewolves.
Yeah. Well, they thought they were werewolves.
Werewolves.
Yeah.
In air quotations.
So the Gonsalvus family toured Europe and brought delight and intrigue to many who came to see them. There are various paintings made of the family in beautifully, formal clothing, which was interesting since they had the wildness to their appearance. At one point, they lived in Parma, Italy, and were under the financial support of Duke Ranuccio Farnese. And for the most part, Petrus and his family lived a rather normal life. However, many, including Duke Farnese, considered him to be less than human. By these people, he would always be considered a wild man. So heart-wrenchingly, as I'm sure it was, Catherine and Petrus's 4 children who had hypertrichosis were given away as gifts by Farnese. So he just gave these little kids away. Oh, here, take a little wild man. Take a wild baby.
We can always make another one.
Yeah, we got a little factory going here, wild man baby factory. So even the youngest of the Gonsalvus children, little Antoinetta, was given away by Duke of Farnese to his mistress, Lady Isabella Pallavicini, as a symbol of his love to her. So here, I love you. Take this little wild baby. What's wrong with people?
I just don't get it.
I don't either. I mean, even back then, you were... Yeah, I mean, just... Well, I dress nice. I have nice clothes, but let me give this baby away.
A wild child is worth 1,000 gold
I guess it's
coins.
like giving your girlfriend a puppy or something.
Oh, God.
I don't get it.
Casey, you hear that?
Crazy. Yeah, have this puppy.
You look so concerned.
I know. He's like, you're not giving me away. So at some point, Catherine and Petrus moved to, I'm going to butcher this,
Hold on.
Capodimonte, Italy. At this point, much of their lives, was a mystery. There's not much documented about them after they moved there. But it's believed that Petrus passed away in 1618 and Catherine just 5 years later in 1623. They had been married for 40 years, which is amazing. I mean, people back then didn't have a tremendous lifespan. But to be married for 40 years when it was, arranged marriage and you're marrying a wild man, supposedly, was pretty cool. So, yeah, I mean, the whole 40 years and the whole situation that brought them together, that they married under, it was crazy. It is interesting to note that Petrus is believed to have passed away in 1618. However, there's no documentation of this in the Capodimonte death register. As was the custom in that time period, only people who had received the last rites were entered into that register. So the presumption is that even in death, Petrus was still not considered human, but a wild man, an outcast, and was not given the last rites as most people would. And therefore his death was not officially documented. And of course, this is speculation, but is not far-fetched considering all that he and his family had gone through because of their unique condition. The final resting place of Petrus and Catherine is not known. However, their life lives on through the many portraits of this unique family. In fact, that's how I talked about how Harrison and I found out about this story. We found out about this story in the summer of 2015. We were on a family trip to Europe when we were in the Schloss Ambros Castle, which is Castle Ambros in Innsbruck, Austria. That being Ambros Castle's Chamber of Art and Curiosities. That is at that Schloss Ambros. It's a collection created by Ferdinand II, the Archduke of Austria in the 16th century. The collection is a unique group of portraits that show individuals with various afflictions and disabilities. However, not all have noticeable oddities. In this collection, you will find a prime example of this in the portrait of Vlad Tepes, also known as Vlad the Impaler, the real-life inspiration behind Dracula. Yeah. Remember seeing his portrait there? Mm-hmm. Remember seeing crippled people? So it was crazy. It's like,
I didn't go in. I stayed in the bus.
You didn't? You came down there.
Mm-mm. I was with you guys on the tour, but I stayed on the tour bus because I didn't have any shoes. I didn't have any shoes. I had hiking boots that were way too big for my feet, and that was it. My other shoes got
You were there
in the hotel or something. I didn't go because that's where the peacock was. That was making all kind of strange noises.
Yeah.
I didn't go.
What?
I was filming.
Who was on the bus with you?
there were people who just stayed on the bus. Some old German woman, I guess.
They try to give you sausages and stuff.
Woman whipped out her Swiss knife and was spreading some
Du
mustard on the
kannst ein
sausage.
Salami sandwich haben.
You don't understand how many times we'd be on the bus and this little woman behind us would whip out her little Swiss Army knife and start chopping up a bratwurst.
Sitting there eating an apple or cut up a tomato or something. Like, what? Good Lord, where'd they bring that stuff from? Well, anyways, I thought you saw that. Well, that's sad. You missed the actual picture, the portrait of Petrus Gonsalvus and his family.
Sure did.
And all their wild man glory.
I can imagine.
And Vlad the Impaler. But yeah, they had all these portraits of people who were like handicapped, like people, some guy laying on the floor because he wasn't able to walk and stuff. And he's like, it's weird. He's like naked, I think. He had like no clothes on and he had like some kind of hat. And he was like, it was very disturbing. It's very disturbing.
Cap on.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
And well, just lay there on the floor and we'll paint you so we can hang you up in this castle. It's very weird. So even within the walls of Washington D.C. National Gallery of Art, you will find a portrait of Catherine and Petrus. It's just a small portrait, but it is a portrait of them. And this portrait is a bit unique from all the other ones that circulated through the 16th, 17th century. Petrus and Catherine and their family. It's unique because it's the only portrait which appears to show the affection between Catherine and Petrus. In the portrait, Catherine has her hand lightly sitting on the shoulder of Petrus. Many claim that Catherine and Petrus are the inspiration behind the 1740 tale of Gabrielle Susanna de Villanova of Beauty and the Beast. However, no one knows that for sure. Their similarities in the story are, very evident. However, the story of the beast actually turns into a handsome prince, which, doesn't happen unless you shave Petrus.
I guess metaphorically.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That didn't happen for Catherine and Petrus. I guess back then Gillette didn't exist and shave him down.
You can still shave. You don't need shaving cream to shave. What do you think?
Gillette's not shaving. They make razors and all kinds of stuff. I'm just being funny.
Just use a straight razor.
Straight razor. That's probably what they used back then. The dagger. The sword.
A dagger.
But, they probably never thought about that. I mean, he's just used to being hairy, so. Could you imagine if he would have shaved him, all the razor bumps and stuff? Ugh.
Well, I mean,
it would have been horrible.
Yeah, it would have ended up growing back eventually.
Yeah, like the next day, like Chia Pet. Back out. Anyway, so that's the story of Petrus Gonsalvus and the wild man of the 16th century Europe, who actually wasn't a wild man. He just had a condition. But people back then apparently weren't very smart, and they liked to think they were freaks and trade them for show how awesome they were, how rich. Very disturbing.
I've got a bunch of handicapped people I can give.
Yeah, I mean, this is my room of handicapped people, or this is my room of people with weird conditions. Some people collect antique cars and hot rods, motorcycles and stuff, and
collect disabled
other people.
Yeah. People still do that. It's not illegal, but
they don't collect other people. What are you talking about? Not here. Not legally, I guess.
That's what I said. Not legally.
I just don't understand. I never understand why that would be a thing. But anyway, so that's our episode for tonight. Do you have anything else to add?
Not really, no.
Harrison. Okay. Well, like I said at the beginning of the show, you can contact us on Unexplained Reality. No, what is it? Unexplained.reality@yahoo.com. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. I probably should stop saying I think that's it. So if you have any stories or experiences, anything you want to share with us, that would be awesome. Just hit us up on that email or any of those forms of social media. And I think that's all I can think of. Yeah, if you like the show, you can rate and review us. We did all of our ratings. We don't have many ratings on iTunes, but they've pretty much been good. We had one that just slammed us, told us we were pretty much horrible.
What can you do?
Hey, guess what he said? I have lots of ums and uhs. Yeah, I'm not a professional, so.
Yeah, sorry.
We're just two guys sitting in a room
This
talking
isn't-
about
this
cryptids and whatnot.
It's not our life, so.
Nah, I'm not getting paid to do this. If I was, I'd be broke as all get out. So, anyways, if you like us, let us know. If you don't, then just keep it to yourself. I guess if you don't have anything else, we'll check out.
Yeah.
It's time to go make some grub for dinner. All right, as usual, we have. Oh man, I'm so out of practice here. We'd like to thank the podcasts that we listen to. We like Mysterious Universe, of course. We mentioned them at the beginning of the show. Sasquatch Chronicles, Into the Fray,
The Grayling Report.
the Grayling, of course, the Grayling Report, Cryptid Factor,
The Confessionals.
The Confessionals, Monsters Among Us,
Mysterious Universe.
Secret Transmission Podcasts, and of course the Seven Ages guys, Seven Ages Audio Journal.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And there's a new one I've been listening to called Strange Familiars. It's pretty cool too. Check that. Oh, and Expanded Perspectives. Those guys are a hoot. Yeah, you should check all those out if you haven't checked them out, which I'm sure you probably have. So they're far better than us. They're not bad like we are.
Yeah. We're bad.
We're just
We're
bad.
what the Spanish would call El Terrible.
El Terrible.
That's exactly what he says that. He's been saying
El
that-
Terrible.
He's been saying that for years.
El Terrible. That's awesome. All right, so El Terrible, we're out. Later.
Prepare to confiscate the human's possessions. Possessions secured. Prepare the probe.
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a hot second. No need for a probe, man. Why are you doing this anyway?
To learn from your kind. And to obtain your container of treasures.
Container of treasures? Oh, you mean my cryptid crate?
Yes, the cryptid crate you possess. We desire it. We have discovered it to be populated with many objects we find most incredible. Correct. The objects in this container cannot be produced on our home planet.
Well, you don't have to abduct people to get your own cryptid crate.
Elaborate.
Just go to cryptidcrate.com and sign up. On the first of each month, a new box filled with amazing cryptozoology-themed items will come to your mailbox, or spaceship.
Allow us to show appreciation to you, human, for this invaluable information.
Yeah, sure thing. Does this mean you're going to take me back to Earth?
Not exactly.
Is where I like to go when I'm feeling like I'm feeling right now. When time was moving slow and this old road to hold wasn't quite so long and loud. Sometimes I just need a little taste of the past, back when my only worry was running out of gas. I dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we'd lie about how far we'd get with girls. The drive-ins are now a parking lot, and the Walmart took our favorite spot, but I love looking back across the years. scared the whole town half to death when he saw how far it was from up there to the ground. The fire department had to come and help him down. I dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we lie about how far we get with girls. The drive-in's now a parking lot, and the Walmart took our favorite spot. But I love looking back across the years, and my mind is all still crystal clear. I can almost see that water tower from here. Can't slow down time or stop the winds of change, but I can close my eyes and simply drift away and dream about the hours underneath that water tower, way before I had a care in the world. On the hood of Tommy's old Chevette, a six-pack and some cigarettes, and we lie about how far we get with girls.